When you're faced with a life and death situation like this, I think oftentimes you feel like sometimes God forgets about you, and you sort of get to a place where you're like, is God really there? Like, does he really care about us? Like, if he did, why is this happening? And, one of the lessons that I learned is that that's when God is at his best. That's when God, instead of pushing you away, he actually he pulls you in closer to him. And in those moments, you realize that that is not a random act. That is an
Mm.
absolute God thing. And God is in us and around us and working through us all the time. And even though we don't necessarily see that physically, visibly, feel that, it's those moments you're like, okay, yeah, God's got this and he's got
Mm.
us. And he just finds little ways to just push you through. To be honest with you, I don't share the gospel like I should. But when I was sick, it like, I don't know, it opened up, opened up a pathway for me to just let it go and reach anybody that was within earshot and was willing to listen to the story and why it was there and how God healed me. And shoot, sometimes I think about it. I wish I could go back to that feeling. I don't want to go back to when we were going through having cancer, because that was, and Donna will tell you, it's the hardest part of our lives without a doubt. And yet I think we learn so much about ourselves and our family and our relationship with each other and with God.
Welcome to the Inheritance of Hope podcast. Every day, 562 children lose a parent to terminal illness. They shouldn't have to face that alone. You can pretend to avoid the painful realities of illness, grief, and death, or you can deal with the real stuff in caring community. On the podcast, people in Inheritance of Hope's community share raw, personal stories of pain, trials, and the shadow of death, which are also stories of joy in terminal illness. Find more Inheritance of Hope community at inheritanceofhope.org. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Inheritance of Hope podcast. I'm Ellie, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation today. I will give the microphone over to you, and you can kind of share a little bit about who you are and your story.
Yeah, so we're the Strebes. I'm John, and this is my wife, Donna. We've been married for now 20 years. And was diagnosed with cancer twice, both testicular, once in 2005 and then again in the end of 2012. But our journey was really 2013. And that's when we kind of were introduced to Inheritance of Hope and what they had to offer and what they provide for families with parents that have a life-threatening disease. And then we actually got to experience the Inheritance of Hope trip to Orlando and Disney World and all the amazing things that they do there. And we've both volunteered many times. Donna's done a lot up in New York, and then I've done a lot in Orlando when we used to do Orlando so many times. And we're so grateful for the opportunity to be able to give back to Inheritance of Hope, and we're grateful to be here with you today.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited to hear how, both being on the receiving end of kind of being placed in this unfortunate spot of, like, people always say it's not a club you want to be a part of, but if you have to be a part of the club, like the Inheritance of Hope Club is a good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So for you to be on both that side and then giving back, that's something that is such a common theme that people who have been served can't help but to come back and want to have other people experience that in the same way. So, yeah, I guess backing up a little bit, what does your family structure look like? Do you have kids? And if so, what ages are they?
So we got married 20 years ago, and we have now, God blessed us with 3 children. We now have a 16-year-old boy, Luke, and we have twins that are 15, and that is Ryan and Emma Kate. And so they were very little when we went through this, and so they don't remember a lot, but we keep telling the story so that they'll have good memories.
Yeah.
And John is a teacher. He teaches PE, and we both run a property management vacation rental business together.
And where are you located out of?
We are in Hilton Head, South Carolina.
It's a tough
Okay.
place to live.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I think the high for this weekend here in Minnesota is like -2 or something. Like,
Oh my goodness gracious,
yeah,
no.
very
You need to
different.
move down south.
Yeah, right.
It is a little chilly here right now, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Chilly
by
for us is in the 50s, so
okay, I was just gonna ask what qualifies as chilly.
yeah.
Goodness. Well, yeah, I guess with your kids being younger when all of this kind of started, I would love to hear what was that experience like being parents of kids who were young and then getting this diagnosis. What was happening in your world when you received that news?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. You know, you have 3 small kids and you just have so much going on. I mean, honestly, I feel like for Donna, I tell people this all the time. I know I was the one that was diagnosed and I was the one with the cancer. I was the one with having to go through the treatment and all the effects thereof. But I feel like Donna, in a lot of ways, had it harder than I did because she's trying to manage me. She's trying to manage herself. She's trying to manage all 3 of our kids and all the moving pieces that were associated. And she's trying to deal with all of that, all the emotions and the ups and the downs and the roller coaster that is cancer. And I honestly feel like she had it harder than I did. All I had to do was take the medicine and sit in the bed and deal with that. So anyway, she was a rock star. I mean, absolutely rock star for our family, for me. And I tell people this, if it weren't for her, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today. So she just, I can't tell you how much of a blessing she is for me and our family. And so, to put it lightly, there was a lot going on then, and it was so hard because then you're trying to think to yourself, well, how do we appropriately explain this to a 2 and a 3-year-old so that they kind of understand that they don't have the life experience to truly understand what's going on and what the consequences are and the ramifications if the medication doesn't work. They don't understand all that. And so, but I think we were, even though they were young, we wanted to be upfront with them as much as we could and be responsible as far as what we told them and how much we told them. But you know, we made sure that they understood that this was a serious situation.
Well, and it's funny because I was reading our blog recently that I wrote during this time. And, again, we were very upfront with them, but they were 2 and 3. So we tried to also put it on their level. And so I remember, and I read in the blog that we told them he had a boo boo
Mm.
and we put a band aid over it. And we told them that God was going to heal that boo boo. And when John was, given the all clear, a year later, we took the Band-Aid off. And I know that they don't remember those specific moments, but hopefully I hope that they remember somewhat of it and they can go back and read my blog and the book that I'm going to write one day.
She's gonna write a
And
book.
they'll
It's gonna be
have all
good.
the memories.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough as adults to process something as life-changing as a diagnosis like that. But then when you have the opportunity, I guess, the difficult opportunity to explain that to young children because it impacts their world so much,
Yes.
but they don't understand the entire context and things like that. So, now that you're removed from them being in that small little phase of life, like what advice would you give to other parents who are explaining something as big as this to their young children?
It's a good question. I mean, look, everybody handles it differently, and we've kind of found that out through this process because I think Donna and I and our family's heart, and not everybody feels the same way, and it's okay. But we feel like God gave us this story to tell, and we didn't want to just keep it quiet and keep it under wraps, and we just deal with it within our family. We wanted to make sure that we use this to glorify God and make sure that if God were to bring other families, other people that are dealing with similar situations in our life that we could use the experiences that we went through to appropriately reach out to them and try to help them through whatever it is that they're going through. So I think again, everybody reacts differently to a situation like this, but my advice is to be as real and to be as honest as you possibly can with yourselves, with your families, and the people around you. And I think that my other piece of advice is something that I had a hard time doing initially, and that is giving up control and allowing people to help you. That was for me, that was really difficult because I didn't want the help. I wanted to be self-sufficient, and yet I was helpless. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't help her. I couldn't help our kids. I couldn't do anything, and I knew that if I didn't allow people to help us, that it wasn't just me that it was affecting. It was Donna first and foremost and our family. And so getting to a place where you can allow yourself to let other people in and say, yes, we need help, and here's how you can help. For me, it was an important lesson to learn.
I think also for our kids, like, again, they don't remember all the stories, but I have them all written down and they can see how people pitched in and hopefully they'll grow up to, help others and, you know, through difficult times or whatever.
Yeah. I love that you wrote a blog through that because I'm sure there's plenty of things that you both have forgotten since. Like,
Oh my
you
gosh.
put it in the rearview mirror. And
Yeah.
yeah, what prompted you to start that blog?
Just when he got the diagnosis, I asked him, I said, can we just put it out there so people will pray? And I had no idea who would even read it, but I thought at least this would be a way. And it was, 12 years ago. So it was before Instagram, before there were other avenues of putting stuff out there. And I just wanted, honestly, people to feel like they were a part of our story. And so, yeah, I wanted to write the memories down for my kids. And one day I am going to write a book. I saved all of our text messages. Like I saved tons of stuff that I will be able to pull from. And I remember a lot of it because there were just so many God stories, things that God would only have like allowed and like orchestrated, crazy things that God just showed up like every day. There was something that you're just like, wow, that can only be God doing this through people. And I think for me, like I just saw how each person brings a gift. We all have different gifts that we can share, and each person brought a different gift to us. Whether it be if they were a servant, maybe they were someone that just stopped by and prayed with us, whatever it was. And I thought that was like one of the coolest things is to see people's gifts that God has given them come through in those situations.
Yeah. Do you remember like one of your favorite God stories that, you can share right now? Do you have any off the top of your head?
I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's one of the ones I remember. We were driving, so we had to drive because we live in Hilton Head. We had to drive back and forth to Atlanta at first, and then we also had to move to Indianapolis later in the process. And we were driving, I think, home from Atlanta, and he had either had a surgery or chemo or something. And I was just not in a good place. And we were in Macon, Georgia, and I went into a Starbucks and I was just really on the verge of tears. And of course you feel like no one has a clue of what you're going through. Like you're just alone. You feel very alone. And I walked in and I went to go pay for my drink and I couldn't find my card or whatever it was. And the guy behind me said, I'll pay for it. And I was like, oh my word. Like, how many times does that even happen? Honestly, I don't think it's happened to me since that someone's paid for a meal. And so I just started crying. And he was a young guy, probably, I think he was like 23 or 24. And he literally pulled me aside and I told him real quick, my husband's going through cancer. You have no idea what that meant to me. And he literally stood in the Starbucks and prayed with me.
Mm.
And just stories like that. I got in the car and of course I was crying and John's like, what is going on?
Starbucks can't be that.
And then I was like, if he sees this guy like standing with me, like holding my hands, he's going to think this is crazy. But anyways, so that was just one of the ones I remember.
Yeah. And just such a good example of being seen by the Lord in something as small as an interaction with a stranger who maybe didn't think much about, paying and bringing out his credit card, but just seeing how like God uses strangers and small acts of kindness to just really meet us in our deepest needs and in times where we feel alone or afraid or struggling. Like, if you have your eyes open to that, like, that kind of stuff is there. It is happening. And so I love that that was just one of many things that happened for you all.
For sure.
Well, and I think a lot of the time when you're faced with a life and death situation like this, I think oftentimes you feel like sometimes God forgets about you. And you sort of get to a place where you're like, is God really there? Does he really care about us? Like, if he did, why is this happening? And, one of the lessons that I learned is that that's when God is at his best. That's when God, instead of pushing you away, he actually, he pulls you in closer to him. And in those moments, you realize that that is not a random act. That is an absolute God thing. And God is in us and around us and working through us all the time. And even though we don't necessarily see that physically, visibly, feel that, it's those moments you're like, okay, yeah, God's got this and he's got us. And he just finds little ways to just push you through.
Yeah, and also I feel like I just want to like thank you both for the posture that you've taken through this. It sounds like that's a pattern that I'm seeing even just from these few stories of being open and accepting of help and just getting your story visible. Because I feel like when we feel very vulnerable, exposed, in pain, anything like that, I think our first reaction is to insulate and protect and go inward and just kind of do that self-preservation and hole up. But the fact that, you both said it in different ways of like, this is a platform for us to share the goodness of God and for him to get the glory, or we're going to share a blog so that people can be praying for us and we're not trying to be self-sufficient. I think that's takes so much emotional bravery because it's not easy. I mean, yeah, can you speak to that dynamic? Did it feel vulnerable to be sharing things like that and receiving help so much?
I mean, I think for me, and I spoke to this earlier, the vulnerability part of it for me was accepting help. The easy part for me was share. I did not have a problem. In fact, I think it probably liberated me in a sense to just go for it. I'd never been a person, and to be honest with you, I don't share the gospel like I should. But when I was sick, it like, I don't know, it opened up a pathway for me to just let it go and reach anybody and anybody that was within earshot and was willing to listen to the story and why I was there and how God healed me. And sometimes I think about it. I wish I could go back to that feeling. I don't want to go back to when, we were going through obviously having cancer, because that was, and Donna will tell you, it's the hardest part of our lives without a doubt. And yet I think we learn so much about ourselves and our family and our relationship with each other and with God. But for me, again, it was allowing people in and allowing them to help. That was the hard part for me, the sharing part, that actually became easier for me.
Yeah, we had a friend ask us if they could do a fundraiser. Or John's motto was God Strong. It was a play off of Live Strong because Lance Armstrong had also dealt with testicular cancer. And he had the same doctor that John had. They had similar stories. And so John came up with God Strong. And so my friends wanted to do a fundraiser and they made shirts that said God Strong. And, they kind of had to beg us to let us do it. And I was like, okay, whatever. They were just going to sell a few. And I think we ended up making like $25,000. It was wild. It like went crazy all over the country. And
it was viral before viral was a thing.
Yeah, viral was not a thing then, but
Yeah.
it became viral. I think Facebook was a thing, but anyways. So that part was actually very hard for us, is more like accepting, like especially financial help. That was probably the hardest thing. But I will have to tell you, to kind of bring the inheritance of hope into it, when John was sitting in Indianapolis and at IU at a hospital, and I'm pretty sure he was getting chemo, and a nurse walked in, and this nurse had volunteered for Inheritance of Hope. And she came in and she was like, there's this organization, Inheritance of Hope, and you can apply. And it's for people that have, potentially a a life-threatening disease. And she was like, it's a free trip to Disney, which at the time, I think Disney's the only trip they did. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I could not even wrap my head around that we qualified for this trip. Because for me, it was like, oh my word, like, I know why they're doing this trip for people. And for John, he was like, it's a free trip to Disney. Sign up right. He literally started filling out the paperwork. So that was not hard for him to receive help.
Yeah, that was pretty easy, actually.
Yeah, that's hilarious. What was it like being on that legacy retreat with other families in a similar situation as you all?
So full disclosure, we are Disney people and we had been to Disney a lot, but this trip was so different in so many different ways. And I will say, when we got back, people said, hey, well, how was it? How was your trip? And I said, oh, we were treated like nobody has ever treated us before. And I'm sure will never treat us like that again. Everything was done for us. And when I say everything, I mean everything. The volunteers, the people that were with us, like they did absolutely everything to make that trip for us the most memorable, the easiest. And it was just, I don't know, it was special for sure. It was just an amazing to be able to be with people, Donna spoke to this earlier, to be with people that actually understood what you were going through. Like I was able to connect with some guys that literally had the same cancer that I had had, and they were going through the same kind of treatments that I had gone through, and they understood exactly what I was going through. And it's like, at some level, you can be sympathetic, but to be empathetic with somebody and to have a deep understanding of what they have gone through, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, that was unique. So that part of it for me was really, really nice.
Well, and I think just made connections that lasted, you know, I mean, some of them were still in contact, or some of them, unfortunately we've lost. But it's a connection that you just can't get just, living your life. Like we didn't know anyone that had gone through this or anything similar.
Well, I think,
So,
Ellie, you said it, like it's a family you don't want to be a part of, you
right.
know, but you're a part of it, whether you want to be or not, because, it doesn't discriminate. And so when you're a part of that family, to be able to connect, like Donna said, with people that, had experienced what, like for her to be able to connect with caregivers and understand what she had gone through trying to take care of me and our family. Like, again, you can't put a price tag on that. For Inheritance of Hope to be able to provide that opportunity for us, and I know they continue to do that for families, is such a blessing.
Yeah, and I feel like you just articulated it so well I mean, everyone has support systems, and that's not like discounting or trying to undersell what support systems look like. But in a situation like that, like the people in your church or your neighborhood or your family who aren't going through a similar story of like that diagnosed parent, caretaker role, both parents your kids still live on and you still need to like do the school things or get them ready to leave the house and all these things. There's just something that is lacking in that support system. Like people can be well-meaning and great and nice, but I think when you get in the same room as someone who has the similar background, like it just kind of closes that gap, is something I hear very frequently of, wow, these people get it. And I don't have to explain the context to you, and like we can maybe share advice or stories of what worked or what didn't. But just that feeling of being understood is something that all humans crave. I think that is just so valuable to anyone, but especially when you're in such a vulnerable position with a diagnosis and trying to navigate that. So I love that your family found that on that retreat.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're so excited that our kids now, my oldest can volunteer and our other two are almost there. So
Okay.
hopefully we'll be able to volunteer as a family of 5.
Yes, I love that. So you said that you both have done different retreats. Do you know how many retreats you've served on since then?
I think I've done 10.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure I've done 10 because I have the jacket to prove it.
I don't know, 4 or 5
Yeah.
maybe. I'm not sure.
She usually does or did the New York trip, and I usually did the Orlando trip. And again, that's when Inheritance of Hope, did the Orlando trip, I would say 3 times a year. It was a pretty good bit. Now I think it's once, but they have so many other opportunities in different parts of the country to experience the gift that is an Inheritance of Hope.
Yeah. Yeah, they've expanded to, I'm trying to remember even all of them, but I think Texas, North Carolina, the
Yeah,
Twin Cities, which it's funny because that would be local to me. I'm in Minnesota, the Twin Cities area. And the past 2 years that there's been a legacy retreat, like in my backyard, essentially, I have been out of town for a wedding both years.
of course.
So I'm like, I have yet to go on a retreat. And I've said that a couple times on different podcast episodes, and people are like, we have to change that. So I think actually I'll be going on the Orlando one in
Oh,
Okay.
fun.
2026. Yeah,
That's
it's
Oh my
about
awesome.
gosh,
time.
it's a
That's great.
blast. Kendra Scott, does she still sponsor it?
Yeah.
They do it right. I mean, the families just are inundated with love and joy, and you're gonna love it. If that's your first one, you're gonna love it.
Yes. Yeah. I know. That's what I am hearing is like all of them are obviously incredible, but I think because of the Kendra Scott partnership, they just
Sure.
really like add that extra level of pampering and just really spoiling everyone who goes on their retreat. So,
Have you been to Disney or do they
yeah.
do Disney? Okay.
I think they change it up. I think it's Universal is what
Universal,
they're
okay.
doing now. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to do Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld on that trip, which was a lot, but man, it was a blast. It was fun. But you're
Yeah.
gonna love it.
Yeah. I'm so excited and I feel like it's honestly been this podcast that has left me feeling a major sense of FOMO. Before I was
Yeah.
always like, "Oh, yeah, like legacy retreats are great, but I'm kind of doing more like legacy videos or over here in
Yeah.
this lane." But
I
honestly,
think it
like
will give you a different perspective when you continue to interview people like us.
yeah.
After having served, you will have a very different perspective. Very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, every single person I interview just raves about the retreat. So it's been that I'm like, okay, it's time, Ellie. I just got to do
You
it.
got to do it. You
Yeah.
got to do it.
Yeah. What would you say to someone who was maybe in a situation where they are maybe hesitant to receive help and they hear about Inheritance of Hope, but they're still kind of hesitant to like sign up for the retreats or do the weekly online support groups or to make the legacy video? Like, what would be your compelling invitation for that person?
That's a good question. I would say it is an opportunity that will not come along again. And if you don't take advantage of it now, you never will, regardless of the outcome of their situation. And I would say you need to absolutely open your heart and open your mind to allow yourself and your family to be blessed by a group of people that are prepared, ready, and willing, and have been absolutely supported by God and God has provided this opportunity for you and for these people to be there in that moment, in that situation, for you to be blessed and for your family to be blessed, and you will not regret it, not one bit. And it is an experience that you can't explain. It's like, when you go to the Grand Canyon or you go to Hawaii and you take pictures or used to send postcards. That's how old I am. But, those pictures they don't do you justice to how beautiful that Grand Canyon is or how beautiful Hawaii is. And the same is true with Inheritance of Hope. You have to experience it to truly understand the gravity of the entire process that's involved. From them greeting you at the airport to carrying your bags to providing meals and hotels. And on top of that, the seminars that you go to and the curriculum that they provide both the adults and the kids. Like it, it's, it's a lifetime experience that you will never regret.
Well, and I think also for me, like what I would probably encourage someone is to think outside of themselves and think about their kids. We had some friends, some neighbors that were a little hesitant, but they ended up jumping in and obviously never regretted it. But I think for the kids to get that experience and to see, again, my kids will have the memory of that. like they will have the memory of Disney with Inheritance of Hope. And then all that you get out of it. I mean, again, like these legacy videos and all the things they do for you are amazing, no matter, again, like he said, what the outcome is. We would have never done anything like that. And I think it's so awesome and so important because none of us know, how many days we have. So,
Now, the
Yeah.
memories you make on this trip, they'll last you a lifetime.
What if you could leave behind your voice, your laugh, your love, all in your own words? Inheritance Hope Legacy Video Service gives you a priceless opportunity to share what matters most with your loved ones. With a legacy video coach handling all the logistics online, you create a lasting treasure for your family, one that's edited, securely backed up, and easy to share. It's completely free thanks to generous donors. Start your legacy video today at inheritancehope.org.
Yeah, and I love the distinction that I'm hearing you make is, you've been to Disney before. And this retreat stood out. Or like there is a distinction between, yeah, anybody who has a phone or a laptop can prop it up and make a little video. But there's a difference between that and signing up for a legacy video with a coach who's going to walk you through the steps and ask you intentional questions. So obviously, like any legacy memory making things that you pursue, it's worthwhile. I will say Inheritance of Hope does it just to the next level where
yeah.
it's not just a trip to Disney. Oh, it's fun. You go on rides. It's like, no, there's so much more to it. The online support groups, it's not just joining a random group to chat. It's like, no, these people are my people. They get it.
Yeah.
The legacy video, it's more than just propping up your phone and talking to a screen. So I love that you're making that distinction because it really is next level.
Absolutely.
Facing terminal illness is difficult enough, but you don't have to go through it alone. Whether you're at home, in a hospital bed, or on the road, join us. We are a community of people that get it. Find the connection, support, and hope you deserve. Because when you don't know where to turn, you can always find hope at home. So don't waste another second. Sign up today. Hope is waiting for you at inheritanceofhope.org.
Yeah, and then what about on the flip side for people who are maybe hesitant to jump in other ways to Inheritance of Hope, like giving financially to make sure that families can have access to these things at no cost to them, or volunteering? Like, what would your invitation to that be?
I would just say, no matter how small you think you can provide something or how big, everything counts. And so, however you can support Inheritance of Hope, I would strongly encourage you to do it because, again, the experience that Inheritance of Hope provides the kids and the adults and the families, the experiences, the prayer, there's so many different ways that Inheritance of Hope supports these families. And any way that you can provide any kind of support or help, again, you can't put a price tag on it.
Well, and I think also as far as volunteering, I mean, even giving, but you can start at 16 and then my mom was doing it, at 70, however old she was I think COVID is kind of what, we stopped doing it and then our kids got older and they're doing a million things. But, you can definitely volunteer at any age, almost any age. And I think it's also like when you volunteer, you see, I mean, for us, we've been through it, but I think if for anyone, like you see, it just opens your eyes to a lot of things that go on that you just don't realize what people are going through.
Yeah.
And it's a way to
Yeah.
serve them and help them.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just a good way to be equipped. Like that's something I hear often from people who are hesitant to volunteer or step in. It's like, well, what do I have? Like I'm not a trained clinical profession like I don't have that as a background. So how am I supposed to step in and talk to people that are experiencing something so heavy or there's a lot of like, why me, or I don't have what it takes. But I think through the process of literally just showing up and leaning in, that is such an equipping process. Like through hearing stories and through being paired with a family on a retreat or in the support groups, like you will be equipped. And it honestly just kind of takes showing up and being willing to graciously hold that story with a lot of love and intention. I want to circle back to something you said earlier of just, yeah, you have this story now. Maybe it's not one that you would have ever chosen. Like that was, you said, the hardest thing, that your family has gone through. But now you have this opportunity to like glorify God and share your story and testimony for his glory. So I guess it's very open-ended, but essentially like you have the microphone. What what would you want to share about your testimony and like how you saw the Lord work through this? And like we have people who are not believers who listen to this podcast. So this is kind of just a good opportunity to like share the gospel and how you've seen it in your own life through cancer.
I think a common question that, people ask themselves when they're diagnosed with a life-threatening disease is why me? I think for me, I didn't necessarily ask why me. I mean, I had a moment where I would probably like, yeah, I mean, why am I going through this? I guess I don't understand. But at the same time, I got over it and I thought, well, why not me? I'm glad it's not my wife. I'm glad it's not my kids. And I began to see that through this diagnosis, I was going to be given, like you said, a platform that I couldn't use otherwise. It's like when you compare, you have somebody that um, is trying to advise somebody who is an alcoholic, but they never experienced themselves what it means to be an alcoholic, and it just hits differently when it comes from somebody that doesn't actually have that perspective, and they may have the head knowledge but they haven't had the experience. And so for me, being diagnosed, as terrible as it was and as hard as it was to think about, oh my goodness, like, am I going to outlive or is my grandmother going to outlive me? Like I had those thoughts go through my head. And yet at the same time, trying to reconcile the fact that, hey, yeah, okay, I'm sick. But at the same time, God is providing different avenues for me and ways for me to be able to reach out and touch others in a way that I couldn't otherwise. And so again, it goes back to being sympathetic versus empathetic. And I had a form of empathy because I had been diagnosed and people, for whatever reason, they listen to you differently when you have that kind of story and you come from that background and have that perspective. And so I think even today that resonates when you're able to help others and for them to know that you've been through something like this. And it's for both of us, for both Donna and I, even though she wasn't the one that was diagnosed, she lived it, she breathed it, it was real. Again, it changed our perspective on life and it changed our perspective just in general. And it gave us an ability to be able to help people again in ways that we couldn't otherwise.
Well, and I think also, like, for John, the whole God Strong thing was, and he actually wrote Lance Armstrong a letter that God was going to be the one to heal him. It wasn't going to be, the doctors, the medicine, the nurses, which is what Lance Armstrong gave all the glory to. For John, it was God that, if he chose to heal him, that was, what it was going to be. And he was able to speak, oh my word, to youth at church. I mean, he even spoke at church when he was going through chemo. I mean, was, his color was terrible. I don't even know how he made it there and stood there to speak. But, he's just been able to speak. He actually is speaking at our kids' school soon and going to tell his story. So I think God continues to give opportunity, but probably more now one-on-one for him to share how God, worked through this awful situation. And,
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. And yeah, again, it's not a club you want to be a part of, but once you're in the club, like using it for the glory of God and for like looking for the redemptive arc, I guess, not just why me? Why is this happening? Which honestly are very valid questions. Like no one would blame you if you asked yourself that. Like that when we face suffering, we ask why me? But looking for that redemptive arc of why not me? What can the Lord do in this? I think that's just, there's so much opportunity for goodness. And that's what we talk a lot about in Inheritance of Hope is joy in terminal illness. Not because of it, but it can happen in the midst of suffering. It is possible. And that's because of the redemptive arc, because of the goodness of God, which is present in trials and when life is great, and knowing that we have Christ to rely on and he is our strength is just kind of what keeps us going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we wrap up every episode asking the question, whose legacy has been impactful for you, whether it's in their death or the way that they live their life, that you kind of continue on their legacy because of their life.
That's a good question. An answer.
I do. I think his dad.
Mm.
His dad tells every single person he comes in contact with about Jesus. And he has these tracts, these old-timey tracts that he gives people that tells the gospel. And for me, he's just an inspiration. He's a very positive person, and he encourages every single person he comes across, literally everyone that he talks to. He has story after story of all the people that he has shared Christ with. And it could be on an airplane. He used to teach math in high school, and it could be to former students that he still keeps up with. I heard him the other day at the basketball game of my daughter sharing Christ with someone. It doesn't matter where he is or who he's around or what, atmosphere it is. He is going to tell people what Christ has done in his life, and he prays for people. He will follow up with praying for them and contacting them and keeping in touch with them. He told us recently to pray for, he was going over to a neighbor's house, and I think he was raised Catholic. I can't remember. It was another religion, but he said, pray for me as I share the gospel of Christ with him. So anyways, he's definitely someone that leaves an amazing legacy. And luckily, he's still here with us, and we're able to share lots of good times with him. So
That was a good answer.
yeah.
John, do you have a separate answer?
I stole his.
I mean, I can't top that one. My dad is somebody he is unabashed about sharing his faith, and I could only hope to be half the man he is in that regard. And that would be a legacy that I think for both of us, and for our kids, that would be our hope, is that we could just unashamedly share the gospel and not worry about the consequences, not worry about what people think, and only look at it from an eternal perspective, and know that if we don't do that, it might be the only time they ever have an opportunity to hear the gospel and what it means to be a believer in Christ, and what it means to truly know Christ and to accept him in your heart, and to be able to live in eternity with him, and that death is not the final act. And those are things that I think I need to do a better job of keeping in mind, and living my life more like my dad. So I don't think I can. I don't think I can top that answer. That was right on cue.
Yeah. No, I love it. And honestly, even just from the hour that we've been chatting together, I see that present in your story. Like, you've both have made it very clear of wanting Christ to be at the center, him to get all the glory, despite the outcomes, no matter what happens in your own personal journeys, like cancer or not. Like, that's something that seems like it's at the top of your mind, and
Absolutely.
it's clear why. Like, you have such a good model, someone who's gone before and is bold in that way too. And I love what you said about, death is not the final act, because, I get a lot of comments from people like, wow, that's so heavy, the work that you do, like, how do you do it? And I'm like, it's definitely heavy. It's emotionally draining. It can be. And also, I don't view it in that way, because there's such an eternal perspective where I'm like, we get to walk alongside people and encourage them to be intentional with their legacy, because everyone is leaving a legacy, whether you are aware of it or not. You're going to be remembered one way or another.
Absolutely.
So, like, you can have a say in how you're remembered by the integrity and the character that you live out. But it doesn't feel super heavy to me, because I have hope in the Lord and that we have this eternal perspective. So I get that not everyone shares that background. And to me, that feels like where there's sadness, Like, I could not do this job. I couldn't do this life without knowing that there is hope and this eternal perspective. And I think you touched on that really well. Yeah. Well, thank you both so much. Your story and testimony is really beautiful, as is your posture towards your story. So thank you so much for being so generous with it.
Well, thank you for having us. We appreciate the time. We love Inheritance of Hope. There's a lot of organizations that people could support. This one's a really easy one to buy into and believe in, and it is not a hard sell for us when we come into contact with people and they ask us about it. This is an easy one. So we appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and to take the time to get to know you better and to allow us to share our story. So we appreciate that opportunity.
Hopefully we'll see each other on some retreats in the future.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. And our kids.
Yes.
Well, you enjoy that Orlando one.
Thank you. Yeah.
We wanted to do it, but our son has a conflict.
Sure. Yeah.
Hopefully one day.
One day.
Clear all our schedules.
Yeah. Well, thank you both so much.
Thank you,
Thank
Ellie.